G'day guys and welcome back. If there was a scale for the smugness of flat earthers, our flat earther today would be number 3, with Eric DeBay being number 1 and Nathan Thompson being number 2. He goes by the name of Phuket Word, and he is not Thai, which is kind of odd. Now today he's going to educate us on Mars, or something like that. Enjoy. Before we jump into this, I just want to remind everyone that I do have a Discord server and the link is below. Now, let's get started. Well, let's start that again. Now, is it just me, or is this simply an image that somebody's zooming in on and moving around? Look, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now and say that this isn't planned or put in there to say, look how fake the landing is, because, that's just a zooming in on an image. Anyway, let's continue.
Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters, and debunkers.
I'm one of them! Oh, he said hello to me! I'm one of them! The debunker, that is, because, well, the other two are just pointless.
About Flat Earth, the most challenging thing to do is to even begin questioning the perception or belief that we live on the outside of a rotating globe.
No, the most difficult thing to do when contemplating Flat Earth is to not immediately piss yourself laughing at the absurdity of it all. Sorry.
It appears that it's already been proven as a scientific fact that we are another planet in the solar system, and that we've already gained the scientific knowledge and expertise to send people off to the moon and back again safely, and of course to send probes off to the dusty red planet of Mars, millions of miles away.
This might come as a bit of a shock to you, but that's because we have. Moving on.
Makes it even more obscure of a so-called conspiracy theory to even begin contemplating, because it would the idea or the understanding that we live on a globe is so embedded in our collective mindset as scientific consensus. But
nothing, because it's fact. It's not a theory. It's not even questionable. There is overwhelming evidence, proof for the flat Earth. There is what's the number I'm looking for? Oh, that's right. 0 evidence for a flat Earth. I'll let you go on.
Eventually get round to scrutinizing what we are presented with and what we are not presented with in terms of the evidence to back up the claims of science, allowing us to get to other worlds, is when we start to see holes in the narrative. And if we are of a slightly conspiratorial mindset, or at least with an open mind, we can begin to understand not only why would they lie, but just how easy it is to lie and get away with it.
Easy. Easy, you say. And what a good picture to have up. Yeah, are they all lying? Like, the best example of this I can think of is faking the moon landing, where everyone is so obsessed that the moon landing was faked. Not only does that take away from the achievements of the people, the men and women who made it possible, they spent their lives making it possible, but it also would have been cheaper back then to actually go to the moon than fake it. Now, what is the purpose of faking things? That's never answered. Why send these probes to Mars? Or fake probes to fake Mars? For what purpose would that be faked? I'm going to let you continue because this is interesting, and maybe you'll come up with some points that aren't absolutely insane.
Why would they lie? It often comes with the underlying assumption that because there are hundreds of thousands of individuals employed in the aerospace industry across the earth in various different countries, they would all have to be in on it, and it would be just impossible for all these people to tell a lie or not realize that they were part of a bigger lie. But when you look at the way any organization is structured, then most duties and jobs are very compartmentalized, and vast majority of individuals working in an organization only play a small part in the end result and are not privy to what's going on in the upper echelons. So it would be actually very easy to have hundreds and thousands of people working in very compartmentalized positions and only doing what they specialize in, and so they wouldn't have to be lying. They are in fact doing good science.
I trust you have proof for this whole compartmentalization, and that individuals don't have any any part of being part of the big lie, and there's only a few people at the top that are part of this big lie. Now, who are those people at the top? Each project has a different project lead. It's not just one person does the same projects over and over again. You're making these claims. Show some evidence for it. It's the least you can do. At least you are thinking, yes, these small people are doing just their own good jobs, and they're not part of it. So you're coming around to seeing it rationally, which is, I think, is a good thing, that you can see rationalization. But there is no one person at the top, no group of people who are faking it. There is no purpose to faking it all. Maybe we'll get there in this video. Maybe we won't. I'm hoping we do.
There's no denying that a lot of the technology that we take for granted nowadays, even the software and the hardware that we use, is a result perhaps of the efforts in the Apollo missions, where many brilliant minds collaborated to downsize hardware and software and come up with new ways of doing things in order to communicate and navigate and put all this equipment into something the size of a capsule that was put on the top of a rocket. So yes, there is real science going on the ground here on Earth, and many brilliant minds have contributed to extraordinary developments in the scientific field.
Before you go on, I just want to ask about the whole Apollo thing. Now, you're admitting that these things were created and miniaturized for the Apollo mission and put onto a capsule on top of a rocket. Why would they fake all of that just to miniaturize it? There's no need for this big show and dance about miniaturizing things. We get new tech all the time. It doesn't need a big show for it all, like big rockets. They the Saturn rocket was massive. Like, it's unbelievably big. And it cost a lot of money. Why would they need to fake all of that up just to miniaturize things? I'm actually impressed that you're analysing this stuff in a rational way, but you're not coming up with rational answers. We'll continue.
Technology as well. And of course, ultimately, what often happens with technology developed for or on behalf of NASA is it does end up coming back into use in a commercial way. So NASA itself is an agent for commercial entities, and a lot of money and commerce and jobs are created just because there is a mission to do something like go to the moon or go to Mars. Whether they actually go there or not doesn't matter. The invoices are created, the money is generated, people have jobs, and they are mostly very compartmentalized, specific jobs in which they really wouldn't know what other people in other departments or compartmentalized jobs are doing. And
yes, but in doing that, you have to realize as well, these things aren't all built by NASA. They're not all created by NASA. NASA's basically the ones that just send them into space. They outsource to many other companies. A lot of it is built by Boeing, Lockheed, a lot of military contracts as well. It's not the NASA scientists. They're mostly interested in what's going on in the stars, not sending stuff out to space. Very few NASA employees actually get to work on these projects. Most NASA employees are just analysing data that comes in from radio telescopes around the world. I mean, yes, they do good jobs, but they're still not the ones that are pushing buttons on machines to send rockets into space.
Experts to do their thing. So at the top of the pyramid, you have a very few people who would still not necessarily be aware of what's actually happening if, for example, we aren't sending probes off to Mars or the moon. The information or the data that they receive back could easily be sent from somewhere else here on Earth.
And if that was the case, then the scientists analysing this data would know. They'd go, hang on, this is from Earth. Because we know what to expect from Mars, from other planets, when we send probes there. And if we get the results we expect, that's good. But if we get the results and they're the same as what's on Earth, they'll go, hang on, this is just coming from Earth. This isn't from another planet. Because the planets are all different. They're all got different compositions. Mars, for example, it gets bombarded by cosmic radiation because it has no magnetic field to protect it from the sun at all. So the rocks and dust and everything that they analyze on the surface of Mars are completely different to what we get here on Earth. They're coated in radiation from the sun. And we know this because we know Mars has no magnetic field. And there's nothing on Earth where you could replicate this. But I'm impressed that you're actually thinking this through.
Taken as an example a couple of screenshots here from a recent documentary talking about Mars and talking with people that were involved in the project. And here you can see the captions for the person talking at the time, Diana Trujillo, and she is saying, when I look at the pictures of Mars, I see the Mojave Desert, right? And we can see here she is the lead engineer of Surface Readiness Test Program at NASA JPL.
Yes, people will see something and they will immediately associate it to something they already know. See, I don't associate it with the Mojave Desert because I've never seen the Mojave Desert. I more associate it with like the Simpson Desert or Central Australia because it's more reddish. And I'm from Australia, so that's what I associate it with. But it's actually from another planet, which makes it even more mind-blowing. So people associate things with what they already know. It's like when you're driving and you drive through a town, like say you're going from one side of the country to the other. You drive through a town, it's the same as the last town you're in. So you're like, oh, yeah, all towns look the same. It's kind of the same way. Like, yes, these areas all look the same, but they're not. They're on different planets, but they still look the same. There's wind there, so that's where we get the sand dunes from and all the ripples in the sand.
And she goes on to say, but I can't tell the difference if this image is from the Mojave Desert or if this is from Mars.
Well, she's not a very good scientist then. Like, there are ways to tell. Mars would have a lot more wind erosion than it does water erosion. The colour of the sky is also different. To me, this image definitely looks like it's got wind erosion more than water erosion, so I would assume this is from Mars, because the sky is also that grey, yellowy colour, which is what Mars has, rather than the nice crisp blue that Earth has. There are ways to tell. I could be wrong. This could be the Mojave Desert. I have no idea.
Straight away, we have a great example of someone who is doing something very important in the Mars mission, and the only thing she can really refer to is somewhere on Earth. And it's just ironic that Mars is said to be very similar to some of the dry places on Earth. So here we have a photograph of one of Earth's very dry deserts.
Yes, and you can see that in this image, the sky is blue. It doesn't matter where you look, it is blue. And, I mean, the roads are a dead giveaway, but you can see how the sky is blue. Whereas the images of Mars, the sky is that... It's kind of a depressing colour of the sky on Mars, but that's what it is.
A surface that is very similar to the kind of rocks and dust and sand we are seeing on the pictures from Mars at the moment being delivered from the rover. We do see a road here, so we know that this is actually on the Earth. But with a couple of filters and things, we can just as easily change this to make it look as if it's a scene on a red dusty planet with a kind of hazy atmosphere filled with dust storms, and that's not reaching not so much sunlight because it's further away from the sun. We can very easily create these photographs. And in fact, what you saw at the very beginning of this was not actually a shot from NASA of anything landing on another planet. It
fucking nailed it.
Terrain very similar to this that was taken from several thousand feet high in an aircraft. And as you see the next clip from that, you'll see that there are vast expanses of desert on this Earth where there are no inhabitants and there are no real signs of life that could easily be used for replicating the kind of conditions one would expect to see on Mars. And all the instruments that are on the rovers could all be sending back data, and they could be taking soil samples. They may or may not be true, but how would anyone verify what they're receiving?
As I said before, the way they verify it is because we know what to expect from Mars. We know that these samples should be bombarded with cosmic rays and radiation from the sun, because there's no protection on Mars. You can't just get up and walk around on Mars. It is a very hostile environment. Not only is it hostile in the way it's got no real atmosphere for us to breathe, it's also really, really cold. You can't tell that from images. But it is really cold on Mars compared to Earth, we wouldn't be able to walk around without a suit at all.
Questions as to whether the technology that has been developed would actually work in the environment that we are told it is in. For example, the Mars rover is said to have been parachuted down to the surface, and then it was let down on cables beneath a cradle with thrusters on it and left there to do its thing, and it apparently survived all this to send photographs and footage back to us.
Yes, this isn't the first time they've used a crane landing for a rover on Mars. I think it's the third or fourth time. The first time they were using these giant airbags, essentially, and they would bounce the rover around on the surface. But that damaged the rover inside this protective casing that was supposed to stop it from getting damaged. And then the other crane landings, they did the same thing. One landed a bit hard, and that's, it's early technology. And now they've pretty much figured out how to do it properly every time. So it has a nice smooth landing because those wheels are quite fragile. The entire rover itself is quite fragile. Now, the unknown for this Perseverance mission is the little helicopter that it has on board. This is the first test for any sort of aircraft on another planet. Now, the helicopter's tiny. Like, it is that big. With, blades about yay long. Now, they don't actually expect this to work 100% because it's the first test. Like, yes, they tested it here on Earth under conditions that are similar to that of Mars, but they can't get exact conditions, whereas now they can. So the information that comes back from that helicopter probe will allow them to build better probes in the future. So by them sending these rovers and altering the way they land through these cranes or bouncy balls, they learn. The scientists learn how to create new ways to land, safer ways to land, ways in which the rovers can survive and perform the missions as intended. The best example of an absolute failure of landing was, I can't remember the name of the probes now, where they landed on Venus. Venus is basically hell. Nothing can live there for very long. And this probe did not. I think it was like an hour or two it survived. And no one's sent anything there since because we don't have the technology to be able to survive such an environment yet. There's talk of sending balloon probes to Venus. Not sure when that's going to happen, but it's a possibility. But even though that probe died, they can still learn information from it. The funniest part is how when it landed, the camera cap shot off and they wanted to test the density of the surface. And they had this spring-loaded arm to hit the surface to see how solid the surface of Venus was. And it hit the camera cap. So all they learned was how dense that camera cap was. Learned nothing about the surface of Venus from that. Amusing, but irrelevant. Moving on.
Has any real testing ever been done on the Earth to simulate the kind of environment that it will be experiencing there? For example, the atmosphere is said to be so thin on Mars that it is the same as being 100,000 feet above the surface of the Earth, where the air is very thin and you even need oxygen to breathe. Has anyone ever used a parachute at that height?
Yes. There was a dude, can't remember his name, a couple of years back. Highest jump, parachute jump. He went up in a balloon and then he jumped out. But we can simulate what atmospheres at that height is like in a vacuum chamber where it's this massive room and they suck all the air out until it's the same as what it would be at those levels, and then they can run those tests. It's complicated, but we can do it. Smaller versions and then scale it up. But again, it's the same thing. Like, yes, the first few probes to Mars weren't the best. There were quite a lot of failures. But now we know what to expect. So we can build these things and just fling them off like nothing else. Like, yep, we know how this parachute's going to work. Bang, bang, bang. The only thing that's going to stop it from working is like a malfunction in the actual mechanism itself. Nothing to do with the parachute or the cables. Nothing to do with any of that. It's a failure for something to do its job.
Evidence of that, and I also cannot find any evidence of people testing this rover and its parachutes on or above the Earth in real conditions to see if those chutes would actually open. It all comes down to being based on faith.
Well, not really. The best example I can think of off the top of my head is Neil Armstrong testing. It was a mock-up for the lunar lander. And because he had to test on Earth a machine that's designed to land on the moon, which has 1/6 the gravity of Earth, that he nearly died testing it. It just crashed. He had to eject from it because there is no way to tell until you're actually there. So the first probe landings told us what we need to know about the atmosphere coming through and everything. And then we were able to develop technologies like the parachutes, moving on. It's like the evolution of the parachute to land on Mars, essentially. But it's not based on faith. They do a lot of rigorous testing, and it is trial and error. Sadly, there are errors, and they cost a lot. And people get devastated by it because they've put their whole lives into this, their whole hearts and soul into this project. And then it just splatters on the surface of another planet. It's like losing a pet for them. It's awful.
That these people in their compartmentalized positions did the right equations and made the right guesses, and it all worked out in the end, because no one ever saw it ever really happen in full on the Earth.
Well, you can't, as I said before, you can't do it in full, but you can at least run small trials to simulate what it's basically going to do. And we can do this in computers as well, to a degree, but the only way we can get actual empirical data is if we send the probes there and do it again and again to improve that data set. And that's what we've been doing. That's why I don't get why you guys hate NASA so much. The accomplishments that these people have done is unbelievable. Sending man to the moon is easy. Sending a probe to another planet, to land on another planet, is unbelievably difficult. The equations required just to get into a stable orbit of another planet, and then to land in the target zone. They landed nearly dead center of their target zone. That blew my mind with how close they were to bullseyeing that shot. That is nearly impossible to do.
To having faith. And that's where you have to discern the difference between real knowledge and belief. Thank you very much.
Click subscribe and the bell icon.
We don't need to see that. That was actually quite interesting and fun. Well, that was highly entertaining and quite informative, really. Yeah, I'm actually impressed that Phuket Word has kind of grown in a way, that he's analysing things, it seems in a different way now. Hopefully this will help him to understand a little bit better to why these things happen the way they do. I'm open to a discussion with him if he wants to have one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, thank you very much for watching. And a special thank you to Purple Haze, Caustic and Lisa for their ongoing support over on Patreon, where you should go to help me buy a globe. Just a little one. I'm poor, I don't have a globe. Or if you want to send me a globe, join Discord, hit me up in the DMs and I'll tell you where to send it. And that'll be even better. Until next time, friends, don't be a dick.